Hi and welcome to another episode of Straight Out of Camera, proudly sponsored by Fujifilm South Africa. Joining me live in studio today is Managing Director of TechSmart.co.za, Mike Hubert. Mike, how are you doing?
All well. How are you, Ashley?
I'm very well. And live from Cape Town, commercial photographer Leon Oosthuizen. How's it, Leon?
Hey guys, good chatting.
How's it going?
Guys, so today we're chatting about documentary photography and predominantly street photography in black and white. And Leon, seeing that you're from Cape Town, I'm sure there's a lot more opportunities to shoot street without feeling like you're going to get mugged. So please give us your idea of what street photography means to you.
I think the streets have been cleaned up really nicely, especially in the city centre and thereabout around the 2010 Soccer World Cup. And since then, it's actually been really lovely to spend time. And you can pick any time of the day or the evening to go and walk around. There's always somebody else for you in a good way. I mean, I was out in the city centre right at the bottom, close to the convention centre one evening after 11. And the security guards actually came, and one of them just walked with me and had a chat. And it turns out he's also got a major interest in photography. Super creative guy that comes from elsewhere in Africa and chose to make Cape Town his home. And that kind of a thing is really what you find all around Cape Town. Everybody is very artistically inclined by the look of it and interested in what it is that you do. Maybe it's my demeanor and my check shirt, I don't know. But street photography in Cape Town is a lovely thing because there's so much architectural variety. We obviously have great scenery, but depending on where you put yourself, you can have 20 different looks. You can put yourself in a space and play around quite a lot. So that's a fun thing to do in Cape Town.
Mike, there's two types of street photography in my eyes. There's the ones that you are trying to exploit the subject, and then there's the type that is beautiful, timeless, and tells you a story. How do you feel about that?
No, I do agree. I think, some people go into Joburg City Centre and all they want to take photos of is the poverty, and obviously, yes, that is a subject matter, but that's not all there is. For Christmas, I got David Goldblatt's new book about Johannesburg, and it's his history of exploring the city, exploring the people. And, one thing about David is he's never, ever exploitative. He's got a compassion for his subjects. He's got a beautiful way with light, and just to see Johannesburg kind of like progressing through the ages, pre-apartheid and even post-apartheid, that's a great journey that he took. So yes, I think in regards to your street photography, poverty is not the only thing there is.
Yeah. Leon, is there a specific street photographer that has really sort of... No, let's ask that question again. Leon, is there a specific street photographer that really their work means a lot to you as someone that enjoys that genre?
Two of my major influences, besides obviously Goldblatt that you've mentioned now, Mike, is Elliot Erwitt. And he somehow saw the humor in life, and that was always part of the subtext. He interacts with his space and his community in a way that it is enlightening. It doesn't necessarily ask hard questions about life all the time. We as people need to laugh at ourselves and see ourselves doing our daily activities, and Elliot Erwitt was great with that. And Joseph Kudelka was more of an urban kind of street photographer, where he photographed a lot of war-torn parts of Eastern Europe, and the book that comes to mind now is his panoramic one called Chaos, and it's all done on film, and it's amazing because it really challenges you to look differently at the space around you, and every now and then there are human forms, so the way that people interact with their streets. So those two things are really big influences for me in street photography.
brandlive.co.za. Making a bold statement yet blending into the surrounding suburbs of Melville, 27 Boxes is a realization of edgy design and practical implementation. A radical departure from the shopping malls of our generation, yet not a return to the high streets of our youth. 27 Boxes showcases the best of a shopping centre set in a garden, surrounded by the bohemian suburb that is Melville. 27 Boxes, shop, play, eat.
Have you ever thought about the power of social media? Social media has the power to make your business grow. grow. Yeah. Why don't you let us manage your social media? Because our business is to see your business grow. Visit us at www.bstownmedia.co.za.
Harnessing the power of talk radio. Brandlive.co.za.
Joburg-based Brad Donald is a full-time wedding corporate and portrait photographer who has a strong passion for street photography. He's also co-founder and manager of the photography business Shutterbot. We all know that certain parts of Joburg is crime-ridden and walking the streets is not recommended, even more so with a fancy, expensive camera around your neck. Brad, however, believes we can't let that stop photographers from getting the content we want. Here to talk about street photography, welcome to the SOOC podcast, Brad.
How's it, guys? Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Now, talk to us a little bit about your experiences in Joburg. As a photographer, it seems to me that the city centre is ripe for the picking for photographers. There's so much culture there, there's so much beautiful images, and yet we don't really see that being explored.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's South Africa, unfortunately. We've got the stereotype of crime, which does exist. So I think that's scared a lot of people away from the situation. I mean, if you speak to anybody with a camera, they don't want to walk down the streets carrying 20, 30,000 rand around their neck. So that's pushed people away, but why should that stop us from generating content in South Africa? We're so unique as a city compared to the bigger ones, New York, London, Paris, and so on. Our people, our cultures are completely different. If you see a New York street photo, it looks the same. All of them are very similar. They're good, but they're the same. Joburg, it's different. It's great.
But yet, you talked about the fact that you're carrying X amount of equipment around your neck. You don't blend in. You're immediately seen as almost like the other. How do you take care of your security in situations like that? Are you concerned about that or not? Does it not really bother you?
Well, we've been going into the streets now for 3 years or so, and we always were aware of the crime, but we never actually thought about it. We were aware of where we were, what we were doing, what was around us, but it was never a concern at the time. So we always shoot in groups of 2 at least, but we try not to keep it more than 5, because then you just become quite a big target. And the reason for having more than one person is extra eyes. Once your eye's in that viewfinder, you can't see anything. Another thing we've tried to avoid is direct contact with people. We always chat to people, engage with them, listen to them. If they ask us questions about why we're shooting, we'll answer them, show them some of our work. But we try to keep a separation between us and people, because when someone gets too close, things can happen. So it's just unfortunate. I mean, that's how things are. So we were mugged in Joburg in August of last year, and we saw it coming. We just got caught on a bridge, unfortunately. So we were walking down Queen Elizabeth Bridge. We had seen someone checking us out. So we alerted the other guys, and we tried to turn around, but then 6 guys jumped us, and when there's a gun and a knife on you, what can you do? So the best situation is just remain calm, hand over your gear, and walk away alive. But since that day, we're a lot more aware, we're a lot more confident in the street. We know what to look out for. We know where to keep our eyes, what to avoid. So it's a learning curve, but shouldn't deter you from the end goal of getting your content.
What is quite amazing is the fact that it hasn't stopped you. You still went back and documented even more. Bradley, just tell us a little bit about your background. When did you start with photography? How did your passion sort of get there? Just give us a short cap of your journey.
So strangely enough, my sister was actually doing modeling. And when I was in the studio waiting for her to do her shoots, I saw the photographer's wildlife pictures up on the wall. And that's what caught my interest first. I've always loved the bush. I've always loved nature. And I thought, that's cool. I want to take photos. So very lucky for me, my parents bought me a entry-level DSLR, 6 megapixels at the time. I was in grade 8. And, kept working. I took photos at school events, sports events, such. Every time we went on holiday. And it just got more and more involved through high school. We started the photo club. I then went on to study photography for 1 year at a small college, small group of students, only about 20 people, which was great, but I felt like you could learn more through yourself these days. no offense to any colleges or anything, but if you work hard, you can learn and teach yourself with no problem. Then I went to study at university for 4 years, where I worked for the student newspaper Paddle Bay, and that was a great learning curve, working for a news outlet, sports events, music festivals, riots, all the stuff you see on TV, we got to cover. So that really threw me into the deep end, and I learned a hell of a lot in that small space of time, which was fantastic. And in that time, I started working part-time for a studio in the Fours area, very small studio, and that was great. And from there, I kept studying, and when I finished, I went to work full-time, but it wasn't quite full-time. So I was working in the studio, but managing the lab too, prints and such. So I lost a lot of photography time. So after a few years, I figured out this wasn't working for me, and I decided to leave. This was about 10 months ago now, and I got my business partner, and we worked together, and we've created our own brand, Shutterbot, and it's been going strong quite since.
Brad, tell me how does your Shutterbot setup work? Is that just purely commercial stuff, or is your photography now fully invested into this business venture?
Yeah, so I'm doing it full time now. So it's full on photography. It's a lot of commercial work, a lot of corporate work. We're trying to push into the wedding industry as we really enjoy it, and that's what we want to do. We do some of the cliched stuff at the moment, the family shoots, the newborns and such, but that's really just to get our name out there. But then we also offer private photography courses and editing courses. And we run a photo club at Golf Country Club, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say, at Bryanston Country Club. And that's open to anyone and everyone. So small entrance fee for the month. We, it can be amateurs, professionals. We speak to them, we help them with their work, give them advice. We get guest speakers in. A lot of them have probably sat in this chair too. But it's great, we love what we do. We like engaging with people. And that's our main goal.
How many people are on the photography club already?
So we have probably about 40 members in our club, but our average turnout is probably around about anywhere between 5 and 20, depending on the week. People have lives and stuff to do too.
One of the series that you did in regard to your street photography was focusing a lot on shadows. How did you come to visualize that element? Did you pick it up while shooting? And how do you integrate then people within the background?
The shadows came shooting through film days. I love the contrasts, and when you're not 100% sure of your exposure all the time, you get different results. So I started to see these stronger contrasts and stronger shadows, and I really liked it. And then I brought that through into my digital side with my Fuji, where you can get that live result at the time. And I love the contrasts. I love creating empty space, negative space, and then relating that to a person somehow. And where you're putting them in that light or half in the shadow, it creates a bit of mystery, a bit of drama, and a bit of the unknown. I mean, that's what you want out of your photos, is for someone to try to figure out what's going on and why it's happening.
And it's not just your regular street photography, because sometimes you see photos and it seems that it's just another image taken on the street. Although, you can call it street photography, but nothing is really happening in that shot, is there?
No, exactly. So a lot of the time you get what's called shooting from the hip. So you're shooting blind, walk around taking photos, but anyone can take a street photo. Someone on the street is a street photo. But what we're trying to achieve is to get a story out of it, to show something that's happening, to give reason to the photo, to make people think about it. I mean, an old person sitting in a chair in the street is an old person, but if you put it in a certain way, you can create much more interest and a dynamic meaning behind it.
Also, when you look at street photography, I mean, there's so many people trying to describe exactly what it is, but I think that the best street photographers are the ones that actually don't try to portray a particular look. You just go and explore, and that's something that I see in your work, that you're far more honest and happy with the way that you see things and going to find things. It looks like a visual exploration. I think that's one of the key elements. Does that ring true for you?
No, that's spot on, actually. So sometimes going into the street, and I'll be honest, it's about 60% of the time, we go in with an idea of what I want to do, what I want to achieve. So I kind of know what I'm looking for. But a lot of the time, I feel that kind of limits you. So if you've got a project, great, perfect, it's all good. But if you just go in for the unknown and then look for stuff, or you sit and wait for stuff, you can get much more true images. Because you can't create anything in the street. You can force a moment to happen by waiting for something if you can expect it. Someone jumping over a puddle, someone tripping, things like that. Windy day, dresses flying up, umbrellas breaking. You can expect stuff, but apart from that, you just got to go in there and keep your eyes open, just guess.
I see in the start of your Instagram handle, you were shooting a lot of bands, Mumford & Sons, Foo Fighters, all of these. Is there a specific love for music and for that sort of photography?
Yeah, so that came from when I was working with the newspaper. We got access to all the music festivals quite easily, and I fell in love with it. I love taking pictures of the bands. It goes to the same thing with the street, where the lighting can change just like that. Spotlights on, off, keep changing. The guys are moving all the time. It's fast paced, and I loved it. It's just, the music's great too. It's a great vibe. You get to work with a great bunch of people. I met a lot of my friends in the photography pits of bands and concerts, and you get to see some of the best music in the world up close, which is awesome.
Brad, when looking at your photography, there's a certain photos where you confront where the subject is confronting you, at least looking into the camera, and then there's others that they are completely oblivious of the shot. How do you feel about photos that draws the person in, meaning that you talk to the people that you have actually photographed, and those that you just do anonymously?
It all comes to being comfortable in the streets again and spending time in the streets. You get to read certain people, and often if you see someone doing something, they might notice you, and you can see that they're comfortable, and then we approach them. I mean, I don't like asking people for photos, but you get that general understanding when you pick up your camera and you're looking at them. They kind of acknowledge you and they say it's okay. It's just all in the eyes. And then we take the picture. So all my portraits from the street are I was given permission, but indirectly. No one ever said yes. I never asked anyone. It was just eye contact and then picking up the camera and then talking to them afterwards, because often you get asked what you do.
But then also sometimes when you do street photography, it almost seems like certain people want to portray themselves, or actually want to, I don't want to say perform, but you do get that setup where if they see you with the camera, there's something else happening.
No, exactly. We get that quite often. And people always think there's some ulterior motive going on with our cameras, and they try to do certain things. But then if they approach us, we'll talk to them and explain what's going on. And then we just wait. You pick up your camera. They don't know you've taken a photo, and you let them fall back into the natural rhythm. Sometimes it takes 2 minutes. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes. But you just wait, and it'll happen. If you speak to people, they become comfortable with you, and then it's no longer a problem. I think people are just scared of confrontation.
Have you been in a situation where people have said to you, no, I don't want you to take a picture of me?
Yes, there's been a couple of times where I've sort of jumped in the streets and picked up my camera in front of ladies carrying stuff on their heads or people carrying large objects. And then they say, no, put up their hands, kind of wave you away. You apologize, say you're sorry, carry on, and then it's not a problem. Other times you get told to go away in very colorful language, but that's how it goes sometimes. You can't please everyone.
Yeah, I think there's a situation, unfortunately, in South Africa where especially white people want to, I don't want to say extort, but they want to take pictures of poverty because for some reason they think that it's appropriate, where you are actually trying to just depict a beautiful story.
No, exactly. And unfortunately, it is a trend. And I think also with the country's history, when you're doing certain things, you get put in a certain place, and it's no one's fault. It's just how things have happened through history and now. So it's not about trying to exploit anyone. I mean, if you explain to them what you're doing, you're going to be fine. But if you're doing that for your own good and not trying to benefit that group, then you're caught out on the wrong side.
Do you feel that your Wi-Fi function on your camera is a benefit in that regard? Because, I mean, you can surely send them a WhatsApp image immediately after taking the picture.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people ask us for the photos too, so we've never really sent them to them straight away, because when we are walking in the streets, I do leave my phone and stuff in the car. But we have done it once or twice where we've had people in Mabaneng ask us for content straight away, and we've sent it through to them. Otherwise, we get details and we share information at a later stage.
Brad, talking about gear functionality, I was keen to find out also, are there any specific settings or ways that you set up your camera when you go out to do street photography, even as far as your lens choices and filters and things? Just because that's something that the listeners would probably be interested to hear what your approach is.
Well, depending on if I'm shooting on a film system or my digital. So on the film, it's always a 50mm lens. Sometimes maybe a bit wider, but I like the 50mm. So on the film side, you know, you set your ISO, whatever's on your film speed. I like to keep it at about 400. Good quality, good speed, and it works kind of going from the morning into the day. And then it's all manual focus. So if you're shooting quickly, you've got a zone focus. Set your lens to a certain distance. I try to shoot it about 1 to 2 meters away from me. If it's there, then I know anything at that distance will be sharp. Round about f5.6 is what I like. If I'm setting up shots, I like to shoot wide open, f2, if not wider if I can. And then on the digital side, with the Fuji system, it's super quick. So shooting in autofocus, even if you pick up your camera and you're not looking at the person, if you know the size of your focus block, the chances are you're going to get somebody in focus without a problem. So it's just about learning your gear and understanding how it works to your best advantage.
Are there any street photographers that have inspired you?
A lot of my friends, actually. I mean, one of my friends got me into the whole street photography scene a lot more. But, you know, there's all the classics, Bresson, Vivian Maier, people like that. Their work is just incredible. They were all shooting on the film days, and their photos are still superior to a lot of people these days.
Yeah.
But we've got a great group of about 30 guys who shoot predominantly on film, but we all change back and forth to digital now and then. And we all inspire each other for the street scenes and those vibes, and it's great.
Is there a collective page where people can go and visit this to see the photos?
It's in progress at the moment.
Uh-huh.
It's not up and running just yet, but it's currently being developed.
Tell me, Brad, just the last one quickly. If you treat your images afterwards, obviously you go home and work through it. Is there a particular workflow maybe you want to share with us?
I'd say about 80% of the time I'm predominantly a purist. I like my photos to look, you know, as I saw them in camera. So I might do whatever I can do in a dark room. Highlights, shadows, dodging, burning. But if I've got a certain set in mind, then it will be increasing shadows and making those areas more dominant of what I wanted to show in my image. But my workflow is super basic, just quick raw edits and then into Photoshop to fix any spots if there's anything, maybe some dirt on the lens, and then it's exporting and onto social media. Very simple.
So that's the way it should be.
Exactly, yeah. Keep it simple. Like you can do in the darkroom is just the easiest way to edit.
So just a quick tip on photography or starting your own business in photography that it probably took you like a year or two to figure out that you could possibly share with the audience?
It's a tricky one. I mean, I think it's been a big learning curve. I mean, even over the past few years, going from one business to my own, things have changed quite a lot. But things take time. So you've got to work hard. You've got to push hard. You've got to focus on your work all the time. Always speak to people. Always share your work and keep improving. It sounds so cliched, but it's the only way to grow. I mean, it's been a tough last year, but you've got to keep talking to people, keep meeting people, keep sharing your work, keep pushing, or else you're not going to get anywhere. I mean, it's really difficult to market in this kind of photography industry because everyone's doing it, but you've got to try one step ahead of everyone by always being in contact.
Okay, so connecting and hustling.
Yeah, hustling.
So how do you use social media in that regard?
We really just use social media as a platform for getting out our work and a couple adverts here and there, but it's really just to share our work and to engage with our audience. A lot of our audience has come through social media. Apart from that, most of our stuff's been through word of mouth and talking to people, approaching people randomly in the streets even, being like, hey, you know, would you be interested in this? Here's a business card.
Oh.
So I think that maybe came from the street side of life, as my business partner's quite good with that. So
Awesome. Where can we find you on social media and on the internet?
So our company is called Shutterbot. It's Shutterbot. It's Shutterbot. And the Facebook link would be Shutterbot RSA to get to it. And then on Instagram, my handle is @Bradders. That's BRAD, a numerical 3, then RS.
Awesome. Thank you, Bradley, for joining us in studio and sharing your journey in photography.
No, awesome, guys. It's been great. Thank you for having me.
Ciao.